Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video. And today we're going to be ranking the routes here in southern Maine. Now, before we get into the video, I'd just like to say that not every single route in southern Maine is going to be on here. If you get south of, say, like Kennebunk, not a lot of routes down there are going to be on here. A lot of routes in most routes, I think pretty much every route in Cumberland County except for the routes that kind of follow other routes, say like Route 100. That's not on here because we kind of felt like that was a copycat route. But most routes are on here. We have 19 in total. A lot of them are going to be in Cumberland County, like I said. A lot in York. We got some in Androscoggin County as well. So let's look at their criteria. Each score is going to be out of 10 points. I really put an emphasis on atmosphere. So 50% of the points scored are going to be for atmosphere. 15% of points are going to be awarded for terrain / how curvy the road is. Basically how fun it is to drive on. And 15% is overall scenery. What is it? What does it look like outside your window? Do you see a lot of great scenery, or just do you see a lot of trees? 10% for businesses, things to do, and 10% for maintenance on the road, and that adds up to 100%. Like I said, not every route is going to be included. We're going to start with coming in and dead last is going to be State Route 207. As you can see, a total of 4.1 out of 10. I got a 4 out of 10 for atmosphere for State Route 207. I mean, it's not horrible. It's not the worst on this list, but it's not really the funnest road to drive on, especially when you consider it's so short. It's got to be one of the shortest routes in the state. It takes no less than 10 minutes to drive it on a normal day. Really not much in terms of terrain. Scenery, a lot of marshland, not a whole lot to see. And really nothing to do. It's such a short route, there's really nothing to do on the route itself. Maintenance is pretty good, 10 out of 10, I'd give it. It's very smooth, not really a lot of potholes. I have a special guest here. Ben, what do you think about Route 207?
Personally, I'm not a huge fan. It's not something that I would go out of my way to go drive down just for fun. It's really not much to see there. It's pretty much just straight suburbia, maybe a couple of industrial parks along the way, but there's really not much to it. I mean, it's a 4-mile strip of straight suburbs and a decently maintained road.
All right, so let's move on to number 18, which is going to be a little bit of a controversial pick here. I got Route 1 coming in at number 18, second to last. It comes in with a total of 4.6 points out of 10. Atmosphere is just this is really hurts. Route 1. I'm not a big fan of driving on Route 1. The atmosphere I'm just not a big fan of. A lot of traffic lights, especially south of Portland. You get down South Portland, Scarborough, Saco, Biddeford, and then parts of even Kennebunk and Wells. There's a lot of red lights, a lot of starting and stopping. That really hurts the atmosphere, in my opinion. Terrain, really not much in terms of terrain either, or how it's a very straight road most of the time. North of Portland, it's not as straight, a little bit more turns, but really not much in terms of terrain. Scenery, at times, there's some good scenery, especially south, the very southern part of Maine. There's some good scenery there, and maybe up towards Bath and Wiscasset, you got some good scenery. Undeniably, it's got probably the most things to do on this list, 10 out of 10. A lot of businesses, plenty of tourist attractions, and it's very well maintained. Ben, what's your opinion on Route 1?
Well, Route 1's a very interesting route, obviously. It's definitely the most well-known route in Maine outside the interstate system, obviously. I think that even if you live in Presque Isle, you still have heard of Route 1 and perhaps even driven on it at one point in your life. But as far as driving down it for fun, there's really no reason why I would go on Route 1 unless I was going to an attraction that happened to be on Route 1. Obviously, there's a lot to do there. There's a lot of businesses, a lot of town centers have Route 1 as a part of them. And it's just a lot of starting and stopping, and it's not really something that you'd go down just for fun. It's something you kind of only go down when you have to. And it's obviously famous because it's got the most businesses, so it's got a lot of people that literally have to go down Route 1, so that's why everybody knows about it.
Yep, okay, so let's move on to number 17, which is going to be State Route 22. It comes from sort of, northwestern Buxton, and it comes down towards Portland. It's kind of a sort of commuter road for those people that live out there in Buxton, maybe parts of southern Gorham. They take Route 22 down to Portland. They commute down. Atmosphere, middle of the pack, 5 out of 10. Not great, but it's not the worst road in the state to drive on. A lot of farmlands, but it's what you're getting with Route 22. In terms of terrain, you got some hilliness, not a lot. As you move out into the country, you get a little bit more hilliness, and it's not the straightest road either. A lot of twists and turns, especially towards the end of the road. Things to do, 4 to 10. Maybe towards the Portland side, there's a lot more. You got Smiling Hill Farms. That automatically it gets 2 points out of 10 just for Smiling Hill Farms. Maintenance 8 out of 10. Definitely, it's better towards the Portland side, but it's overall a pretty well maintained road. Ben, what's your opinion on Route 22?
It's not that terrible of a road. It's not something I dread going down unless it's heavy traffic. Sometimes maybe during rush hours, while everybody coming out from the the western part of the greater Portland area, maybe using it as a shortcut to get to downtown Portland in the mall area. But it's kind of just an average road. It's pretty flat. There's not a lot to see. There's a lot of farmland, some small suburbs kind of along the way, a couple businesses, places to eat. Smiling Hill Farms really is the most prominent part of that route, I'd say, with some of the best ice cream you'll find in all of Maine. That's all I have to say on it.
Yeah, we are not sponsored by Smiling Hill Farm, by the way. Yeah. Okay, number 16, we got State Route 111. This is another artery. It kind of connects Alfred and the Sanford area, Route 202 with Biddeford, and the Biddeford exit off of 95. The atmosphere, I give 5 out of 10. I mean, over the years, when do you drive on Route 111? You go down, I'm a very experienced storm chaser, go down south. Route 111 is kind of a spot we always get off and kind of go towards the center or go inland and see where the storms are. So atmosphere, it would have been lower if it wasn't for that. Terrain, not a whole lot. I mean, once you get in, this is always the case inland Maine, but it gets a little bit more hilly as you go inland, but not a whole lot. It's a very straight road also, not a lot of curviness. Scenery, 5 out of 10. A lot of farmlands. As you get closer to Biddeford, a little bit more to see. Things to do, 6 out of 10, especially towards the Biddeford side. You got that plaza, you got the Olive Garden that closed, you got that Kobe Steakhouse place, Panera, and then downtown Biddeford. So, some decent things to do. Maintenance, 8 out of 10. I think it's a pretty well maintained road. It's a road that's used by a lot of people. It connects two of the bigger cities in the state of Maine, or not the state of Maine, it's the southern part of Maine. So it's a pretty well-maintained road. Ben, what's your opinion on 111?
111's a pretty solid road, I think. I think that this ranking is accurate, however. I just don't think there's really much special about it. It's kind of serves its purpose as an artery between the central part of York County, Sanford, and Alfred, to the Biddeford area, especially to the Interstate 95 going northbound for those folks. But I think there's some beautiful countryside along the way. I think it's well maintained. There's just really not much more than that along the way.
Yep.
111.
Okay, let's go to number 15. We have State Route 237. This is kind of a lesser known road. Kind of connects Center Gorham, Route 25, up towards Sebago Lake. It kind of parallels Route 114 from Gorham up to Standish. In terms of atmosphere, I'm a big fan of this road. It's got character. It's not a straight road. A lot of hills, a lot of turns, and I think that helps the atmosphere. It's more of a country back road type of route in the state of Maine. Terrain pretty good, 6 out of 10. You got some nice hills on the way there. Scenery, 4 to 10. Not a whole lot to see. As you get closer to Sebago Lake, you'll see a little bit more. But towards the Gorham side, not a whole lot. You do have a rotary. I'll give a credit with 202. Very nice rotary there. Things to do, I gave it a 3 out of 10. Really not much to do at all. It's not really a business road. It's more of a connection road, more of a farmland type road. Maintenance, it's a back road. It's not going to be as well maintained as other roads. I gave it a 4 out of 10. Ben, what's your opinion on Route 237?
Honestly, 237 is a pretty fun road to drive down if you're the type of person that likes driving down back roads and going a little faster. But yeah, it definitely makes for a bit of a challenge. There's a lot of hills, a lot of turns. It's a little windy, nothing crazy. Obviously, it's not in the mountains or anything, just some very small hills. But it does make for a decent challenge. There's not a lot of business around there. Maintenance is not too, nothing too spectacular there. But I would say definitely the highlight of the road is as you get closer to its terminus up there in Standish. You see the southern part of Sebago Lake, and you can kind of see it through a thin layer of trees looking north, and it's a really cool sight. It's a really scenic view at the end of 237, at the northern end at least. So I think it's a solid road. It's a fun road to drive down. There's not really much to do on there, but it is a pretty fun road to drive down.
Yeah, it's just a fun road. Okay, number 14, we got State Route 11. I'm not, I've driven on Route 11 plenty of times, but I'm not an expert. I think Ben's more of an expert than me. I gave it a 6 out of 10 in terms of atmosphere. It's got a good atmosphere, especially when you turn right off of 302. Take Route 11 down through the countryside towards, Casco area, down towards those small lakes, just to the north east of Sebago Lake. It's got a nice atmosphere there. Terrain's pretty good. It's a pretty hilly road. Scenery's pretty good too. I gave it a 5 out of 10. It's kind of average. It's not great in terms of scenery, and there's not a lot of things to do. There's a couple corner stores on those little Maine corner stores off of Route 11. So those are kind of cool. And maintenance, Route 11. It's a big road. It travels all the way up to the north part of Maine. But the part down in southern Maine, it's maintained decently well. Not great, 4 out of 10. What's your opinion on Route 11?
It's a pretty solid road. It's definitely very rural. Doesn't really pass through a lot of populated areas at all. I mean, it goes through a bunch of small towns and serves as a town center for towns like Limerick and I believe Sebago too, if I'm not mistaken. But it does offer some great views, some awesome lakeside views as it kind of travels off. It kind of goes by the shores of several different lakes there. And it's also a pretty fun road to drive down. A lot of curves, a lot of gradients there going up and down the hills. And a lot of trees too. Definitely a lot of trees with this road. But yeah, it's this pretty solid road. There's really not much of a reason for me living in Portland to ever go down it, but sometimes I've been down it just for fun a couple times, and it's not bad if you like driving through the countryside with some nice terrain.
Okay, so let's move on to Route 9. So Route 9 is it's a very interesting road, especially at this part of the state. North of Portland, it's kind of got a back road-ish vibe as you go up towards Cumberland, past Cumberland, up towards, Lisbon Falls, Lisbon area. And I'm not really familiar with it up after that. It kind of goes up towards Augusta after that, but it kind of cuts 295 and 95 in half north of Portland. Now, south of Portland, it's a different road. It kind of goes through the city. Kind of follows Route 1 for a while, goes down through Old Orchard, which can be a good thing, can be a bad thing. It depends on what you're looking for in your routes. I don't think that's a great thing, in my opinion. Atmosphere 6, overall 6 out of 10. There are some good parts about this road and some not so good parts about this road, but it's got a pretty good atmosphere overall. Terrain, especially north of Portland, it's got some pretty good terrain. You got Bradbury Mountain off to the side. Scenery, pretty good. Overall, 5 out of 10. Things to do, I'll give it an 8 out of 10. North of Portland, not as much, but south of Portland, you got plenty to do. You do have, like I said, you have Bradbury Mountain to the north. You got the city of Cumberland, and then it goes right through. That's kind of nice. Maintenance overall, Route 9, I give it an 8 out of 10. It's a pretty well-maintained road. Ben, what's your opinion on Route 9?
Well, Route 9 is, as you said, a very diverse road. Going south of Portland, it's honestly kind of a nostalgic drive for me, given that I used to take it to Old Orchard, growing up in Portland, follow Route 9 all the way to Old Orchard and go get some pizza and fries down there on the beach there. But I think it's a solid road. There's definitely a lot to do, a lot of business on that road, but there are definitely parts of it that serve as more of a back road, especially when you go north of Portland, when you go into Falmouth and Cumberland, into North Yarmouth. Those areas, it definitely serves as more of a back road there, and it's not a bad shortcut if you're going from Portland to Cumberland or North Yarmouth. So, as far as being a fun road to drive on, I don't really think that there's too much special about this road. It's not something I go out of my way to go drive down for fun, but it definitely is. It definitely has its place, and it's definitely a road that serves its purpose.
Okay, so let's move on to State Route 88. Comes in at number 12. 6.3 out of 10 here. Score for Route 88, and this is a interesting road. It kind of starts off of Route 1, and it kind of just maneuvers the coast and up towards Yarmouth. So it's not the longest route on here. It's one of the shorter ones, but it does have a good atmosphere in my opinion. Especially when you're just gliding down the coast, you see a little a decent amount of the water. You see that Cousins Island, that coal plant looks very nice. You got the country club, Portland Country Club, off to the right side, and some very rich houses for sure. Terrain, really not much terrain at all. 4 to 10. Like most coastal routes, you're not going to really find much terrain, but it does get a 4 to 10 because it's not the straightest road in the world. It does maneuver the coast, kind of contours the coast. Scenery. 8 out of 10. I gave it an 8 out of 10 because you do get some nice views of the water, especially, and things to do there. Really not many things to do off of 88. I mean, you got the Mackworth Island. I guess if you want to go hike across Mackworth Island, you can. You got the Portland Country Club. Really not much besides that off 88. It's more of a residential, rich area. Maintenance, it's all right. It could be more. It could be better maintained than it is, but it still gets a 7 out of 10, which is all right. Ben, what's your opinion on Route 88?
Well, Route 88 is definitely one of those routes that you probably wouldn't take unless you lived on it. However, it does serve as a nice alternative if you're going from, let's say, Portland or Falmouth, going north to Cumberland or Yarmouth, or vice versa. It does serve as a nice alternative there if you want a nice view of some nice houses, some nice developments, and some, as well as the ocean, as well as Cousins Island, obviously, and other islands in Casco Bay, even if you look close enough. But yeah, it's actually, I'd say it's a fun road to drive down. I'd say if you you're not gonna see any amazing scenery, but you're gonna see the ocean. Obviously, you're gonna see some nice houses. It kind of follows the coast all the way up to Yarmouth. And it's a nice back road. It's a nice alternative to Route 1 or even 295 for that matter, if you don't mind taking an extra 10 minutes on your drive from Portland to Yarmouth.
Okay, let's move on to number 11. We've got State Route 231. This is an interesting road. It's a very back road. It kind of goes through downtown New Gloucester. It's a road that's I've driven across many times. It's one of my favorites. It only comes in at number 11 because it doesn't have the facilities that other roads have. In terms of atmosphere, 8 out of 10. It's got a pretty nice atmosphere. As you can see, it's got very good terrain. 8 out of 10. A lot of hills, a lot of twists and turns on this road, and it connects two of my favorite roads out there. 115, which we'll get to later, and 202 is a pretty good road as well. So it's a pretty nice road. I mean, it's a back road. As you can see, the maintenance it could definitely do much better. I gave him a 1 out of 10. Just potholes everywhere, and things to do. There's not really nothing to do off of 231. It's just a back road. Basically, to me, it's one of those roads that it probably shouldn't have a route number, but it does. The scenery it's pretty good. There are a lot of hills, so when you're coming down those hills, you can see miles. You can see some bodies of water. It's just a part of the state you don't really get to see much, especially those farms off those back roads. You just don't really get to see that scenery that much. So I gave it a 6.5 out of 10, which comes in just outside the top 10 at number 11. What's your opinion? Have you ever been on 231 before?
I have a few times. It's not one I go down very often. I really don't have much reason to go out in that direction. But anytime I have been down it, it definitely gives me that old school classic rural Maine vibe, which is kind of cool. And as far as maintenance goes, obviously it's pretty bad. It's not well maintained at all. There's been potholes. Well, I've mostly driven that in the summer, so very rarely have I driven that in the wintertime. But even in like late spring, when when most of the potholes have been patched on some of those major roads, I've noticed that there's potholes that still exist, major ones on 231, and there's really not much to do there. There's really not a whole lot of reason for me to even go in that direction, honestly, and but it is a nice road if you don't mind a couple bumps along the way. Definitely has some nice Maine countryside along the way.
Okay, well, we're moving on into the top 10. Heck, there we go. Oh, sorry, we have a tie for ninth. So two routes tied at number 9. Both got a total of 6.6 out of 10. The first tie for ninth we've got is State Route 5. And this route kind of goes, it starts in Old Orchard and it goes all the way up past Freiburg, past Rumford, and basically kind of follows the western border of Maine and New Hampshire. It's not very parallel, which gives it a great atmosphere because it's not a straight road at all. It's very hilly, a lot of twists and turns, which really helps the atmosphere. Terrain, like I said, a lot of hills, a lot of twists and turns. It's got some pretty nice hills, so terrain 7 out of 10. Scenery 5 out of 10. There's some good moments of scenery on this road, but there's also a lot of trees. You're not going to see a whole lot for most of this drive, but you'll see there's some couple good moments. Things to do in Route 5. Only reason why I give it a 4 to 10 is because it starts in Old Orchard. You got some things to do down there, but it would be a 1 out of 10 if it wasn't for Old Orchard. There's really nothing to do once you get north of Saco. Going through Waterboro, crossing 202, up past Freiburg. Really not much to do there. Maintenance 4 to 10. It's not the worst maintained road, but it's not sparkling. It's not potholeless. There's plenty of obstacles on the road. Ben, what's your opinion on Route 5?
Well, I think Route 5 should be ranked a lot higher. Obviously, I know you did your own criteria to rank these, and obviously it doesn't meet some of that criteria, but this is one of my favorite routes in all of Maine, and there's really no part of this route that I really don't like. I'd say the least favorite part for me is going through center Saco there because there's a lot of start stops. Obviously, it's probably the most populated part of that route. But Old Orchard Beach, it's pretty nice. You got a lot of really nice businesses along there. I believe Fielder's Choice is along Route 5, if I'm not mistaken. Going through downtown Saco, obviously most of the businesses in Saco are located on Route 1, so there's not a whole lot of businesses along Route 5 there. But past that, I think it's just it's a great road to drive down. I think it's decently maintained, nothing special, but nothing bad. I think that the scenery is pretty good. It starts off with mostly farmland. As you go further north, you get a little bit more terrain in there. The road becomes a little more windy, a little bit more up and down. You got some nice lakeside views. You go by, I believe, Little Ossipee Pond in Waterboro. That's a decent view. But as you go north, once you get past Route 25 there in Cornish, it gets even better. You get some excellent views. By the way, it's got an excellent view there in Limerick, I believe. Yeah, I forget the name of the point. Let me look it up real quick. It's Secaucus Lake Scenic View. It's one of the best views in Maine. Overviews a valley there with Secaucus Lake at the very bottom of the valley. It's a really awesome view. And then obviously once you get north of 25 through Cornish on Route 5, you get some amazing views with some hills and even some mountains. And obviously up through Freiburg. I'd say as far as like businesses go, there's not a whole lot to do, but if you're an outdoorsman, you could definitely find a lot to do just off of Route 5, hunting and fishing perhaps, as well as some like white river rafting, because it kind of, or I guess just rafting in general, as it kind of goes along the Saco River.
Okay, so let's go to the other route that tied at number 9, and that's 202. Also got a 6.6 out of 10. The atmosphere for 202, I like 202. It's not my favorite route in the world. It's not the most opportune location, kind of in the center of the state. It never really comes close to the coast. Never comes near Portland. The closest it gets is Wyndham. But the atmosphere is pretty decent, especially north of Wyndham. I'm a big fan of 202. South of Wyndham, going through Gorham, not a big fan of 202, especially you get through Waterboro down towards Sanford. It's kind of blah, not much. But once you get up, past Gray, it's a pretty fun road getting up towards Auburn. I'm a fan of 202. Terrain, especially north of Gray, there's some pretty good terrain on 202. It's a little bit more flat as you get past Gorham and west of Gorham. But overall, terrain's pretty decent, 6 out of 10. Scenery, 7 out of 10. There's some decent scenery on 202. You talk about, the rotary with 302. Very nice scenic area there. I'm a fan of just the Gray Center. Very nice area there. And north of Gray, there's some pretty good views. On 202 in between Gray and Auburn. It's a pretty hilly area. You get some pretty good views. Things to do, 7 out of 10. 202, it's not really a huge businessy type of road, but that's kind of the main street for a lot of the small towns that go along it. And you'll find plenty of businesses on 202. Maintenance, it's a very well maintained road. All these U.S. routes are very well maintained. I give it a 9 out of 10 in terms of maintenance. Ben, what's your opinion on 202?
I'm not a huge fan of it outside of the where it goes from Gray to Auburn. I think that's a pretty fun drive. A lot of hills, a lot of views, a lot of curves, and not much start and stop. But other than that, I'm just not a huge fan of it. I think it's kind of boring. I think it's pretty flat, especially in the southern areas. Even as you go through places like Alfred and Waterboro, there's no crazy terrain there. It is a pretty open road in those areas, so you can definitely drive a little faster. I guess that is an upside to it, as well as the maintenance. I think it's well maintained because it is a U.S. route as opposed to a state route, and serves as a main route, especially in towns like Sanford, Alfred, and Waterboro. But honestly, there's just nothing that excites me about this route. It doesn't offer a lot of views. It doesn't really offer a lot of fun driving, with the exception of Gray and Gloucester and Auburn. I just don't think there's anything special about it.
Yep, okay, so let's move on to number 8, which we have State Route 77. Route 77 starts in downtown Portland, and it kind of travels south, goes over the bridge, the Casco Bay Bridge, and it kind of traverses the coast, Cape Elizabeth. Get some great views of the several state parks there. You got Two Lights, you got Crescent Beach, you got Fort Williams, very nice place as well. Atmosphere 7 out of 10, and really that has to do with pretty much the Cape Elizabeth area. It's nice driving through downtown Portland. It's not bad. And going over the bridge, that's got some good views. Terrain 3 out of 10. Really not much to say in terms of terrain. It's pretty curvy at times, especially the Cape Elizabeth, but really not much in terms of hills. Scenery 8 out of 10. You're going to see a lot on this route. It's a very scenic route, especially if you start it down at the end of 207, you travel up to Portland. Very nice road to go on. And it's kind of a roundabout way to get from Scarborough to Portland, but it's a fun way because you get to see a lot. Things to do, 7 out of 10. You got a lot of tourist attractions. You got like I said, the state parks. You got Fort Williams, and you got some businesses, especially in South Portland. You got that Wendy's. You got Tim Hortons that's not there anymore, unfortunately. You got McDonald's. Maintenance 8 out of 10. It's a pretty well maintained road. It's kind of it's I wouldn't call it rural. I wouldn't call it it's kind of more urban-y, especially towards the northern edge. But Cape Elizabeth is going to keep the roads in pretty nice condition. Ben, what's your opinion on Route 77?
I think Route 77 is short but sweet. I think it's a short route, obviously. It only spans a few towns, but it's got a lot on it, and it's very diverse for such a short route. Obviously, you start right in downtown Portland, go over the bridge there. Offers a nice view of Casco Bay, as well as, obviously, the rest of Portland and South Portland. If you're a big airplane guy, it offers an excellent view of the Portland International Jetport. So that's a good part right there. Then obviously goes into South Portland. You get some start stops there, which is not fun if you're looking for an open road. But once you get past that into the suburbs of South Portland into Cape Elizabeth, you start to see some nicer houses. That's where the state parks are kind of located off of. They're not directly on Route 77, but obviously they're located right off of there, like Fort Williams, obviously. Go through downtown Cape, beautiful town. Then I think the highlight, in my opinion, is obviously the southern part of the route in the Cape Scarborough area, where it kind of goes along the coast there. You get some nice views of the water. I believe, if I'm not correct, Higgins Beach
Yes.
is located off 77.
Pretty much. It's not directly off of it, but it's like off a couple of roads off it.
Okay. And you got some great houses in that area, some mansions, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think it's a solid route. It's not really a route I would go down for some nice country back road driving, but if I want some nice scenery in my life, some nice views of the ocean, I'd say 77 is definitely one of the best routes I'd.
Yeah, I know my friend Luke is a big fan of 77. He drove there a lot, especially during the pandemic earlier in the spring. Let's go to number 7, Route 115. This is a very interesting route. It starts in the Yarmouth area, and the part of it that I really took into consideration is the part, you go from Yarmouth up towards Gray. It connects 202 down towards Route 1-ish. And it's kind of two parts of Maine you don't really think is synonymous. Gray is sort of near Yarmouth, but 115 connects them together. It's got a good atmosphere, in my opinion. It's not a straight road. It's very windy. The route isn't one just road. It kind of goes onto another road, and then you turn back onto it, and it's pretty fun in terms of that. Terrain's pretty good. It's not a straight. It's not flat. It's very hilly. Now, there is a part of this road that kind of, once you get past Gray, it kind of follows 202 almost the entire way to Wyndham, which is where it ends. And it's still a pretty good part of the road. It's not bad. Scenery, 8 out of 10. You're going to see a lot, especially once you get to the eastern part of Gray and heading south towards Yarmouth. You're going to see some good things, especially on the downside of those hills. Things to do, 1 out of 10. Really not much to do on this road. It's more of a back road. Really no businesses at all. The only businesses you'll kind of see is when 115 connects with Route 9. And that's sort of in the North Yarmouth, Cumberland area. And then it kind of branches back off. Maintenance, 3 out of 10. Not the greatest, but not the worst either. I mean, this definitely could be better maintained than it is. Ben, what's your opinion on 115?
115 I think is similar to 231, but it's not quite as classic Maine countryside feel, I would say. I'd say 231's just a little bit better, a little bit more farmland, a little bit more hills, and a little bit more views of the countryside of Maine than 115. But 115 obviously passes through Gray. It passes through slightly more populated areas, and obviously terminates right there at downtown Wyndham. So it's a nice little back road. It's a nice little shortcut for, I guess, those who live in either Freeport or Yarmouth and want to go to Wyndham or Gray for whatever reason they might want to. Maybe they'll use 115 to cut on over there. But I mean, it's not a bad road. It's nothing terrible to get about. I'd say the maintenance is probably the worst part. They probably don't maintain it that well at all. I know I've driven there a few times, at least in the Wyndham part during the wintertime, and it was a lot of potholes, not very well maintained.
Okay, number 6, we have State Route 25. This is kind of one of those main roads that takes you from, the coast towards the New Hampshire border. This is kind of one of the southernmost of those. Of course, you got 26 coming up later and 302. 25, atmosphere is pretty good. It's not quite as good as some of those other roads. The views aren't quite as good. The terrain's pretty good, though. I mean, once you get past, say, Standish, there's going to be a lot of hills, a lot of twists and turns. Once you go over, I believe it's the Sockopee River, they've got some nice views of the Sockopee River. Once you get, towards Cornish, up towards Parsons Field and Porter. So scenery, 8 out of 10. Terrain, 8 out of 10. Things to do, not a whole lot to do in 25. I mean, towards Portland, of course, you're going to have, your normal businesses. Westbrook, downtown Westbrook is Route 25, so you're going to have businesses there. Gorham also, downtown Gorham, but once you get past that, really not much. Once you get past Maine into New Hampshire, you start getting more businesses, but really, once you get to the main border, from Gorham to the main border, not much. Maintenance, pretty good, 7 out of 10 for the most part. I really haven't had a problem. There are some spots where I could use some paving, but State Route 25, I think it's an underrated road. What's your opinion on Route 25, Ben?
Well, Route 25 is obviously one of the most popular routes in Maine. It's kind of the primary gateway going west from Portland to places like northern York County, and even southern Oxford County, as well as western Cumberland County. Obviously, you got some popular attractions along the way. You've got USM right there off of 25. You've got downtown Westbrook, other parts of downtown Gorham, downtown Standish has some stuff. I think once you get past Standish, I think that's when the drive gets pretty good, in my opinion. I think it's a lot more open, a lot more hilly, a lot more challenging, a lot more views as well. I think Cornish has some nice views of some of the valleys and the mountains near there. And once you get towards the New Hampshire border, that's when it gets really good with the mountains and the scenery, including the Ospey River as well, along 25, as it kind of follows it as you get close to the New Hampshire border. I think it's a great road to drive on. I think it's an easy one. Obviously, it's well maintained. It's kind of a primary road going to parts of north central York County and southern Oxford County, as well as western Cumberland County.
Yeah, it is good. Well, here's what I'll say about Route 25 is, I use Route 25 to get to school. I go to school in New Hampshire. Once you pass the main border to New Hampshire, it's much better maintained. Once you get closer to the border in Maine, it's not quite as good. But for the most part, once you get Cornish, east of Cornish, Route 25 is very well maintained. Let's go to the top 5. So number 5, we got State Route 114. There's a couple parts of 114, and I understand that. I understand kind of south of Gorham, it's not as appealing, especially you don't really see a whole lot. Atmosphere, 7 out of 10, so it's pretty good, especially when you get north of 35. That intersection with the stop signs, it's one of the worst intersections in the state. There definitely should be a rotary there, but there's not. Especially in the summer, it gets backed up. You get like 10 cars, but whatever. Atmosphere 7 out of 10, especially when you're traversing and contouring the west side of Sebago Lake. Very fun drive. You see a ton of the lake, and it's great. The terrain, especially in between Gorham and Standish, in between 25 and 35, a lot of hills. It's kind of a roller coaster. It's pretty fun. Scenery, 7 out of 10. Like I said, Sebago's pretty nice. You see a lot of Sebago Lake, especially once you get past Standish into Sebago and up towards Naples. Pretty fun. Things to do, 6 out of 10. The southern part has a little bit more, and then you got Sebago Lake, the northern part. It's a fun route. Maintenance is pretty good most of the time. Once you get past Sebago, the maintenance definitely not quite as good. But south of that, it's pretty good. So what's your opinion on 114?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of 114, and I'm a huge fan of it in the summertime. I'm more of a fan in the summertime than I am in the wintertime. And I think that's because, obviously, you drive right next to the lake. And there's a lot of attractions that are along Route 114. Obviously, you got the state park right off 14. You got multiple beaches along Sebago Lake there. But it's a fun road to drive down, especially in the summertime when it's obviously better maintained, not as many potholes. A nice lake view with some nice greenery, I'd say. I'd say the major downside to this route is sometimes it can get very congested, especially in the Scarborough section of the route, where a lot of people coming from Gorham and Scarborough and Buxton use it as sort of a shortcut to get down to the mall area, South Portland, and Scarborough area, where many of them work. So during rush hour, it can get very congested. I've seen it in person. It's not a fun time to sit in it. And obviously, if you're in for a nice back road drive, that's the last thing you want. So I'd say it's a pretty solid route, except for that one particular part there in Scarborough. I think that other than that, it's a very good route, especially in the summertime where it's very green, a lot of good views of the lake, and a lot of cool attractions like the state park, obviously.
Okay, let's move to number 4, and we've got State Route 35. This Route 35 kind of starts in Kennebunk Port, starts at Route 1, and then it kind of goes through the countryside, and then it kind of crosses 202, up towards 35, crosses 35, it crosses 25, and goes up through Standish, and crosses 114 on the southern part of Sebago Lake, and then it kind of follows 302 for a bit, and then it kind of branches off, goes onto the east side along Lake, and then it kind of goes north of Harrison. So I mean, it's a very different drive. I've driven it all the way up to Bethel a couple times, and it's a fun drive. It is, especially once you get north of, especially when you get north of, say, Wyndham and Standish. Once you start getting off of 302, you get onto that road that parallels Long Lake. Not the funnest road in the world, but you get from there, you go north, plenty of scenery to see, especially north of, say, Harrison. Atmosphere 8 out of 10. It's a fun road to drive on, especially north. Terrain 8 out of 10. A lot of hills, especially north of Long Lake, and you'll see a lot from those hills. 6 out of 10 in terms of scenery. There are a bunch of ponds you'll see. You'll see some interesting houses as well. Some farmland. Once you get up to Bethel, you'll see downtown Bethel a little bit. Things to do, 6 out of 10, a lot of fishing. The northern part, southern part, you've got some farmland. Not a whole lot to do, but it's a decent amount to do. Maintenance, 7 out of 10. Most part, it's pretty well maintained. It's not quite as well maintained as you get north of say, Long Lake and Harrison. Ben, what's your opinion of 35?
I think, like many roads on this list, the further north you go on 35, the much better it gets. I think in the Kennebunk area, it's actually pretty boring. There's not a lot to see there. I've driven that multiple times. Not a lot to see. There's really just a couple farms, not much terrain there. But then you kind of keep going north, and you get past Standish. It starts to get a little bit better. It gets a lot more hilly, I'd say, and then it offers some nice views. I believe it goes right through the lower bay of Sebago Lake, so it offers a nice view of Sebago Lake, one of the best views in Maine at that point, looking north from the south of the lake, kind of near where 237 actually, and so that's kind of one of the highlights of the routes, I'd say. But then when you get north, it becomes a very fun road to drive on. You go through some nice towns in Raymond and Harrison, obviously, and then you kind of get into the real back country of Maine, going north through some of the mountains there, all the way up to Bethel, where you see some pretty cool views of the mountains and some lakes along the way as well. And obviously, there's not much population, but hey, it's a nice back road in Maine. It's beautiful year round. Especially when you get north of Standish. Or once you get to Standish and then north of there.
All right, let's move on to number 3. Number 3, I think, is one of the most underrated roads in the state for sure. And when you look at this list, you'll see really, things to do could be higher as well. I mean, there's plenty to do off the road. But I was thinking in terms of businesses. Maintenance, not very well maintained, 121. But it makes up for that in terms it has a great atmosphere. This is a road that is full of character. There's really nothing like it. You start up in Oxford, or you could start down in Raymond, but it's certainly not a straight shot. I mean, if it was a straight shot, it'd be a lot shorter road. But man, you go through just a bunch of twists and turns, especially at the start of the road. The terrain's great. You go up and down hills. Scenery's great. You see a ton of ponds, a ton of lakes. You pass by a couple lakes right next to the lakes. Beautiful drive. One of the best drives in the state, in my opinion. Things to do in terms of businesses, really nothing off the road in terms of businesses. You'll see plenty of things to do, plenty of hiking trails, plenty of lakes and things. Maintenance, it's not well maintained at all. It's not really a road that's used a hell of a lot. But man, it's a very fun drive. What's your opinion on 121?
I'm a huge fan of 121. I think it's a fun road all around. Recently, this past summer, for the very first time, I took it from Auburn to the Oxford part of it. So basically from 202 all the way to 26. Previous to that, I had only been on the part from 302 to 26. But I think it's a lot of fun. I think there's some awesome views, some awesome lakeside views as you go by several shores, some awesome, amazing terrain as you go up and down a lot of hills, a lot of twists and turns, winds, stuff of that nature. And that's really the whole duration of the road is doing stuff like that. There's really no boring part of the road. You kind of have to keep your attention on the road at all time. One false move, one second of lapse in concentration could lead to a crash. It's a very challenging road to drive on, but it's a pretty fun road, especially if you're looking for a nice back road that's not a main road, but it's a fun back road. This is definitely something I recommend.
All right, let's move on. Let's move into the top two. At number 2, we've got State Route 26. This is easily one of my favorite roads in the state of Maine, especially in southern Maine. Atmosphere really can't get better than 26. I mean, it can't. 10 out of 10 in terms of atmosphere, especially once you get north of Gray. It's just a beautiful part of the state. You get to see Thompson's Pond, Thompson Lake, whatever the heck it's called. Get up towards Norway. Beautiful little town up there. Get north of Norway, you've got the mountains. You get up towards Bethel, you see a ton of different towns. It's beautiful. It's just a beautiful drive. And even south of Gray, it's not horrible. It's not the funnest drive when it parallels 95, but it's not the worst drive. Definitely a lot of nostalgia for me at that part of the drive. So I give it a 10 out of 10 in terms of atmosphere. Terrain, I give it an 8 out of 10. It's pretty good. It's not the best in terms of terrain, but it's a very good terrain route. Scenery, that 9 out of 10. There's tons to see on Route 26, especially north of Gray. You'll see a ton, especially up in the Norway, past Norway, up towards Bethel and the areas up there. Things to do, 8 out of 10. Plenty of things to do. Of course, the casinos off Route 26. Up toward plenty of things north. Norway, even the southern part of Route 26. You got Gray. And then in towards Portland, which, it's not a great part of Route 26, I would say, but it's all right. Maintenance, 8 out of 10. Route 26 is always maintained pretty well. It's one of the main arteries. Of course, now with the casino being there, it is used as much as it ever has been. And it's a very good route. And I'm glad they chose to put the casino on Route 26. What's your opinion on 26?
I really like 26. It's always been a popular route. It's kind of the northern gateway to places, obviously a northern gateway out of Portland to places such as Sunday River and Rangeley, even if you're going up that far. I know some people take a different route to get up there, but I know some people do take 26 to get up all the way up there. Obviously the casino has made it even more of a gateway. A lot of people go take 26 going north of Portland all the way up to the casino. Very popular place. But it's a well-maintained road. It's a really fun road to drive on. There's a lot of ups and downs, a lot of twists and turns, especially when you get north of Gray there, north of the interstate. Even before that, though, it's nothing but kind of countryside, and it's relatively flat, but it's still a decent road, not a whole lot of stops and starts until you get to Portland, obviously. Then it becomes Washington Ave and Auburn Ave, and it's just not as... it is Auburn Ave. Then it's not as fun at that point. But that's just such a short part of the route that it doesn't even matter to me. I think it's a very fun route year-round to drive on. If you love a nice mountain view, you get that once you get north of Oxford. And even in parts of Poland, it's kind of on top of a hill a couple of times. So you can see for miles at those points and offers some pretty nice views. I go fishing up 26 a lot, so I do use this route a lot, especially in the summertime. There's a lot of lakes along the way there, and there's a lot of businesses too, low-key. There's a lot of places there, downtown Norway, downtown South Paris, and downtown Oxford as well. Some decent spots there.
And coming in at number 1 here on our list is going to be 302. And now I will say there's probably some bias in here. I don't think there's any route in the state of Maine I've probably been on more than 302, maybe Route 9, but that's probably because I live on there. Route 302, it's a really good road. Now, there's really not a lot to see until you get up to Windham, but that's kind of where the nostalgia factor comes in for me. It's it's very, not much to see once you get up to Wyndham. Very flat. Once you get past the Rotary, you got downtown Wyndham. You got the Seacoast Fun Park. Goes right along the eastern part of Sebago Lake. Beautiful part of the state. You got, the state park is just off that road as well. Then you get north of, say Bridgeton, and it's beautiful up there. Just tons of views. You see Shawnee Peak. You see the mountains up in New Hampshire. And the fact that this road does connect parts of Maine with North Conway, I think is big too, because that's really helped the development of this road. And it's a really good route. 10 out of 10 in terms of atmosphere. No, like I said, really no route I've ever been on more than 302. Terrain, especially the northern part of 302, is pretty good. I give it an 8 out of 10. Especially when you see like Shawnee Peak, areas like that. Beautiful views of the ponds and lakes up there. Scenery, 8 out of 10. Especially at the start of Sebago Lake all the way up to the New Hampshire border. Pretty nice views. Things to do, 9 out of 10. Plenty of things to do off 302. Anything you want, you could probably do. Not quite as good as Route 1, obviously, 9 out of 10. Maintenance, 9 out of 10. Very well maintained road. So, Ben, what's your opinion on 302?
Well, I agree with 302 being number one. I think 302 is an excellent road. It's if you're traveling down 302, you're most likely going to someplace fun. You're most likely going to Sebago Lake State Park. You're going up to New Hampshire, either North Conway or other parts of the White Mountains. You're going to Naples, maybe, along Long Lake there, the Causeway. Or you're going to Seacoast Coast Fun Park, I guess. Maybe some people are doing that, especially if you're going from Portland. But anyway, this is a good road all around. I don't even care
It's a good mini golf road for us at the Smiggle. We got Seacoast Fun Park. We got Steamboat Landing, which is technically on Route 114, but it's kind of right off of 302 up in Naples. And of course, you can't really count the New Hampshire part, but 302 New Hampshire is very nice as well.
302 New Hampshire, I would argue, is a top 10 route in the entire country east of the Mississippi River. I would say it's one of the best. It's probably the most scenic route I've ever been on, east of the Mississippi. But I think that 302, well, that's obviously New Hampshire, not Maine, but 302, I mean, I don't care if you're a person who doesn't really like back roads. There's definitely a lot of business along there, a lot of stuff to do, a lot of stuff to see. If you are a fan of back roads, it's not as much of a back road because it is a very popular artery, especially for people going to these points of interest, as well as people who live in Wyndham, Raymond, Naples, and Bridgeton, going to commuting to Portland or Westbrook. But this is a fun road all around. I've never had a bad time going down 302. I think it's always well maintained. I think there's always some nice, excellent views along the way. You obviously go right by Sebago Lake, Jordan Bay there. Get a great view of the lake looking southbound. Excellent view of Long Lake looking northbound. You see some mountains there. On a good day, you can even see Mount Washington from there. And obviously you get north into the mountains. You got a nice view of Shawnee Peak, a nice view of many other mountains along the way there. And there's still a lot of attractions along the way, a lot of places to eat. If you ever get hungry going along the way, it's
You got a Dunkin' off every corner.
Yeah, it seems like the Dunkin' Donuts capital. I'd say either that or Route 1 are probably the most number of Dunkin' Donuts along the road in the entire state of Maine. But I love 302. I think that it's awesome the whole way up. And maybe sometimes it sucks during rush hour, especially as you get closer to Portland. A lot of people use it going to Wyndham, Westbrook, Raymond, and Naples, obviously. But once you get past there, I think it's a fun time. I'd say the biggest downside to Route 302 is they're always doing construction on it year-round. Somewhere on 302, someone's doing construction on it, which can get kind of annoying because they block a good part of the road sometimes for up to over a mile of the road, which can be kind of annoying.
Yeah,
So,
especially in the summer. In the winter, it's not as bad, but in the summer, it's not the funnest time. Any closing thoughts about this list?
I don't agree with it perfectly, but I think it's a solid list. I think that, Maine in general offers some excellent roads. Obviously, I live in Massachusetts now. I drive down there a lot, and the roads down there just, in my opinion, aren't as good as the roads here. They're not as well maintained, and they just don't offer the same kind of views, the same kind of experience overall that you get with some of these roads in Maine, especially with the mountains. We don't really have those down where I am in Massachusetts. But overall, I do agree with the gist of it. I definitely agree with the one and 2, and even 3 on this list. I would have had Route 5 much higher. I'm a big fan of Route 5, obviously. And 202 I'd put a lot lower. But overall, I agree with this list. Maine's a great place to go drive, as I said, especially if you're a big back road fan. A lot of these routes offer some pretty fun experiences.
Yeah, that's well said. So thank you everybody for watching, and hopefully we'll be back soon with another ranking video.